you went to a lot of work to put together a rather interesting and unusual exhibit. Tell us a little bit about how you came into being involved in that, and the work that was involved in presenting that very, very well done exhibition.
I originally got interested in them through another project. I was doing some research on the Lincoln Theater downtown, trying to look for some exterior photos.
You and I talked about that.
Yeah, we had talked about that, and wanting to do a little restoration on the marquee out in front. And so in the process, kind of followed the leads and got connected with Ron and Paul out at the Lincoln Heritage Museum. Of course, I knew both of them previously, and then I started thumbing through the plates and really discovering what they had out in there, just packed away in boxes, almost as like they've never been unpacked since Mr. Schroyer delivered them. And
I imagine that's so.
Yeah, and so we began looking at them. I had a first couple sets of prints, about 3 of them printed last September and almost a year ago, and when I saw the final results of how well they came out, I told Ron, I said, there's something we got to do with these. And then March or April of this year, we actually talked more seriously about setting up some sort of public exhibit. But details and where and when and all that were unknown at that time.
Was there one particular photograph, David, that you noted that saw particular interest to those who were in there?
Well, some of the more human interest ones, I guess you could call it, where the man was sitting there playing the bugle. I know that was Ron Keller and I's favorite, just because there was so much mystery and probably not much more that have ever been remembered of that man, and we don't even know anything about him. But a lot of people enjoyed the ones where you couldn't exactly spot the obvious things, like the school children in the tree and then sitting on the ground, and but a lot of people liked the kind of the buildings that were there that are not now.
Old school buildings that are no longer, but
yeah.
I'm sure some of them looked at them from a technical standpoint, thought that was pretty, but you have to understand how that was done in those days, and I certainly do not know, but the glass negatives, and so you were able to make prints out of these, and in some cases do a little bit of nominal restoration while you were doing that.
Yeah, mainly we tried to leave them as untouched as possible as far as removing physical defects. But mainly the only thing I did was through the digital process, I kind of made them a black and white, kind of a black and white filter over them, and then from there it was straight to have them printed. We left some of the curled edges. You could see lines and dark spots on them where there would have been cracks. A couple of them were actually in 2 pieces of glass, so we lined them back up, and you could see some of that. But that was part of the originality and authentic nature of them.
You see, Jim, David's one of these young techies that knows how to go about that. You take advantage of the digital processes, and thank you for taking the time to do that. Now, what about the future of these negatives and pictures? Will there be a place to ultimately have those on display?
Well, Ron and I we hadn't really thought that far, because we weren't entirely sure, being the first time that something like this had been done, and at least as far as we know. We really were trying to get through the weekend to see how the response was, and then kind of plan appropriately. One of the biggest challenges is amount of wall space.
Yes.
As you could tell, there was lots of wall space in that particular building that was unobstructed, and with 16 by 20 inch prints, you can eat up a lot of wall space real quick. So we haven't decided what exactly we're going to do. They're going to return to the Heritage Museum out there, since they are the owners of those, but perhaps there will be something in the future. I'm going to assume that we're going to do something in the future with them, whether it's another exhibit or maybe have a couple others printed. That has yet to be determined with Ron and the museum.
Well, our thanks to Ron Keller for his collaboration with you on that project. I know in Ron's case, a labor of love, just as it was with you. Real quickly before we take a break, and bring on our next guest. What about your work on the restoration of, not the physical restoration, but trying to put together the history of the Lincoln Theater? How are you coming with that?
Well, it's an interesting story, and I had kind of put that aside when I started working on these. I put together a relatively interesting story of trying to picture what it looked like as, you know, people like yourself might have remembered it, and did that through a couple newspaper articles that were very detailed in its description. I'm always up there talking to Mr. Gossett up there, always talking to him about what we can do to it, and I really want to get that sign, the marquee, repainted and relit. Of course, that takes
pretty sick now.
Yeah, it takes money. They did fix the corner that was crunched in from the delivery truck that was delivering the digital projectors, and but we're continuing to work on that. A lot of it has to do with dealing with corporate and passing things up and down the chain of command for permission, but we'll get it eventually.
And unfortunately, movies are facing a huge competition with most of us stay at home and watch TV, although there's certainly not much to watch on there except the history and C-SPAN and Discovery, that type of thing. We're going to take a quick break with a sincere appreciation to David Doolin for coming up here, Dave, to talk about that little project. We thank you very much, and if our station engineer is ready, we'll go now for a station break.